Hello everybody and welcome back to the Straight Outta Cloyne YouTube channel. The time has arrived. It is time for us to predict the 25-26 footballing season. The Community Shield and Super Cup have both been played, so now I can really say the season is officially underway. Congratulations to Crystal Palace. Congratulations to Paris Saint-Germain. The Super Cup has literally just been played. Unlucky to Spurs. But yeah, they thought they played quite well, to be fair, and it was quite an entertaining game to watch. But listen, now we're here to predict the proper trophies. Listen, the Community Shield and Super Cup are great curtain raisers, but now we're going to get into the real stuff. So every year that I've done this, which was normally over on TikTok, last year I should say, was the first time that I did this on YouTube. So what I normally do is basically, I just predict the trophy winners. But this year I'm going to change it up a bit. So we're still going to be predicting the Premier League winners, Champions League winners, FA Cup, League Cup, Europa League and Conference League. But we're also going to be predicting the top 7, we'll say, of the Premier League, which should be the European spots. I know it depends on the cup winners, but let's just assume the cup winners all finish in the top 4 or 5. And we'll also predict the relegated teams. And you know what? Let's predict the top scorer as well, because why not? In terms of how good I am at predictions, well, last year, out of the 6 trophies we predicted, the 6 winners of each trophy that I should say, we got a grand total of 1. Correct. But that one was Newcastle winning the League Cup, which to be fair, I had predicted 3 years in a row, so I was bound to get it right eventually, I suppose. But yeah, I did get that one correct, which I was quite happy with. But this year, in one way I'm hoping I do better, in another way I'm hoping I do slightly worse, because some of my predictions are made with my head and not my heart, which means that the likelihood is I probably won't want to see them happen, and it'll make more sense when I actually give those predictions. So let's just get into it. Listen, we've gone on long enough with this intro. Let's get into the very first prediction, and that is the Premier League, which I notoriously get wrong every year, and I'm hoping I get it wrong again this year, because my prediction to win the Premier League is Liverpool. Now, Liverpool definitely do have a couple of issues they need to work on in the squad. The main one being the defence. I think that would be quite fair to say. But I do think they will get that sorted before the end of the transfer window. I mean, I just look at that Liverpool team last year, and some people have said, oh, they won a bad Premier League, they didn't really have a serious title contender. And you know what? Maybe there is some substance to that. But you still have to win it, and you can only win what's put in front of you. And I look at the improvements they've made over the summer. I mean, Ekitike looks like a really good signing. Frimpong, I think, might even be an upgrade on Trent Alexander-Arnold. And that's no disrespect to Trent. I just think Frimpong offers them something a little bit different to what Trent offered them. And I really do think that if they can add Alexander Isak to this team, with, you know, already having Mo Salah in there, Gakpo in there, they've already got a hell of a lot of talent in that team. I really, at this moment in time, just can't quite see anybody finishing above Liverpool. Of course, Arsenal have just signed Victor Gyökeres. They've made a few decent signings. I still just think Arsenal are going to be a little bit too inconsistent. Manchester City have made some good signings. I mean, City I was very close to picking, and here's why. City, of course, won the Premier League 4 years in a row. Last year, for their standards, they had a very disappointing season. Got knocked out of the Champions League in the playoffs. They lost the FA Cup final to Palace, 3rd place in the league. I can't even remember the stage of the League Cup they got knocked out in, but for their standards, it was a very disappointing season. And some people are thinking that City are going to have a bit of a transitional period. But I kind of liken what Man City are going through now, maybe to what Manchester United went through after winning 3 Premier League titles in a row from 99 to 2001. 2002, we had a very poor season for our standards, finished 3rd in the league, didn't win a single trophy, did get to the Champions League semi-final, so we did do a bit better than City in Europe that year, but we then won the league in 2002-2003, and I think a few people that year were kind of writing United off. So that's why I nearly kind of half leant towards Man City, thinking they might surprise a few people this season, and then they might go through another transitional period. But I do think Liverpool will have just enough edge over Manchester City and Arsenal this season. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I wish it was none of these teams, to be honest with you, but I suppose Arsenal are the lesser of these 3 evils. But again, as I say, I just think Liverpool this year are still going to have that cutting edge. The signings they've made, just that general squad they have, I just think it's going to be stronger than both Arsenal and Man City. But as I say, I get this prediction wrong every year in terms of my Premier League winner prediction, so I am praying to the footballing gods I get this one wrong as well, honestly. And to be honest with you, I may as well just get into my Champions League prediction now, because I'm also predicting Liverpool to win that. Coming into these predictions, as I just said there, I was actually initially going to go at Man City to win the Premier League. And Liverpool were always going to be my Champions League prediction. I just think, again, going back to what I just said about the signings they've made, I think there could be a special season coming there. And I hope I don't sound too untoward by saying this, but of course, this past summer we did lose Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, which of course was unbelievably tragic. And I do think that is going to be a huge motivating factor to Liverpool, that they'll want to do everything they can to honour the legacy of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva as well. I know he didn't play for Liverpool, but you get what I mean. I do think that will be a big motivator for them. I don't think it's going to derail them. I think that, listen, to take, bias out of everything and just look at it from a human perspective and not a football perspective, the way Liverpool have handled the aftermath of Diogo Jota's passing has been absolutely sensational. I have to give credit where it's due. And I do think that will translate over onto the football pitch as well. I am expecting them to have quite a good season. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to see them win the Premier League or the Champions League, but right now, I just think, especially as well with how they got knocked out of the Champions League last season, they were fantastic, of course, in the league phase. They ended up topping the table. But then, in the last 16, after that smash and grab in the first leg against PSG then came to Anfield and surprised everybody and ended up knocking Liverpool out. So even though they lost to the eventual winner, I do think they will want to make up for what was a disappointing Champions League campaign for them in terms of how it ended. As I said, brilliant in the league phase, but I don't think they would have been expecting to get knocked out in the last 16 of the Champions League. So yeah, my prediction for the Premier League and the Champions League is unfortunately that I think Liverpool will win it. But hopefully I will get this prediction wrong. So now we move on over to the domestic cups, and these are always a little bit more difficult to predict because, of course, we always talk about the magic of the FA Cup, and with all due respect to Crystal Palace, who do have a very good team, I don't think many people would have predicted Palace to win the FA Cup last season. It's always tricky to predict these things. Now, I did get my League Cup prediction right last year, but the domestic cups are always just so difficult to predict. So I've had to kind of give these ones a bit more thought, and I'm quite happy with my choices. I'll say this right now, I'm a lot more confident in my FA Cup winner than I am in my League Cup winner. But with that said, let's get on with it and talk about my League Cup winner. I'm actually going to predict Tottenham. And you can call me crazy predicting Spurs to win trophies in back-to-back years, but allow me to explain. So, of course, Tottenham last season, away from the Europa League, it was a very disappointing campaign for them. 17th place in the league. I don't expect them to finish anywhere near as low this season. I know some people like to joke about the fact that, United and Tottenham nearly got relegated. I mean, I call it a fact. It's really not a fact. Yes, they came 15th and 17th respectively, but when you look at the points tally, United and Tottenham really were never in danger of going down. I mean, 17th and 18th points gap was crazy, never mind 17th and 20th. So, yeah, let's just get that out there. But still, of course, for Tottenham standards, it was quite a disappointing season. They have moved on from Ange Postecoglou, but something he has left with that team is what it's like to win a trophy again. Tottenham hadn't won a trophy in almost 20 years, and I do think it is going to give them that bit of hunger to go and win some more silverware. They're nowhere near competing for a Premier League title. They could, of course, win the FA Cup, but I'll get onto my FA Cup prediction there in a second. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near as good in the Champions League as they were in the Europa League. I think they'll do all right in the Champions League, but I don't expect them to get to even a quarter-final, never mind a final, and eventually winning it. And I just look at the League Cup and think, there are certain teams that will take that competition seriously, and I really do feel like Tottenham will be one of them. Thomas Frank, now after his debut game against PSG, coming so close to winning a trophy, I think will have that desire to right that wrong after coming so close to winning that game against PSG, and he'll want to get silverware in as soon as possible. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Tottenham to win the League Cup. Call me crazy, but hey, I got my League Cup prediction right last season. Will lightning strike twice? It remains to be seen. But in terms of the FA Cup, I won't lie, lads, this is partly with my heart, but I have used my head for this as well. And of course, you probably can already guess it, my prediction to win the FA Cup is, of course, Manchester United. I mean, we just talked about one team in the Europa League final who had a disastrous season in the Premier League, and now we're going to talk about the other one, and of course that is the team that I do support. Let me just fix my camera here a little bit, it's after slanting down ever so slightly, my apologies. Yeah, so United last season, it was a complete disaster. No two ways about it. And of course, that means we have no European football this year. For only the second time in Premier League history, Manchester United will have a campaign without European football. Now, I have to remember, and every United fan needs to remember, we are in a very privileged place to say that. I mean, how many teams would kill to just have one season in Europe? Never mind be in Europe every single year, bar two, when you look at the whole course of the Premier League's existence. And of course, I am just talking Premier League there, not the old Division 1. They are separate entities. I've had war explaining this to people, so I'm just going to move on from it because I'll only get myself worked up. But I do think the most important thing for Manchester United this season is to have a good season in the Premier League. And this might seem like I'm contradicting myself here a little bit, but I would take a strong season in the Premier League that gets us back into the Champions League than I would finishing even 8th or 9th and winning the FA Cup. We've already seen that with United recently. Erik ten Hag, of course, in his last full season, finished 8th, won the FA Cup, and don't get me wrong, that was a great moment, but not a very good domestic season. Never in a million years did I think we could stoop any lower than we did, and then we came 15th the following year, lost the Europa League final, but I really do feel like United are going to have to look at that as a blessing in disguise, where we can just solely focus on domestic football. As I say, for me, it's more important for us to have that good season in the Premier League, but of course, football is all about winning trophies as well, and Manchester United are all about winning trophies. This would be a bonus on top of having a good Premier League season. But I do think when I look at the business we've done this summer, Mbeumo coming in, Cunha coming in, Šeško coming in, Diego Leon, I should say, he looks like a promising young player on the left-hand side. I still think we need a goalkeeper. At the time of recording, we haven't signed Baleba, but who knows if we could get him. Donnarumma, I think, is a little bit too far-fetched in terms of a goalkeeper as well, just to go back on that point there. But I'll be honest with you, I can still see it being Andre Onana in between the sticks this season. I mean, we played Fiorentina in a friendly there last week, and David De Gea, of course, made his return to Old Trafford to take on Manchester United. And when I looked at Altay Bayındır and our net, and I looked at De Gea in the Fiorentina net, it really just reminded me of how far we fell. And that's no disrespect to Bayındır. I think he's a decent backup goalkeeper, but the fact that Onana and him are going to be our choices for goalkeeper this season, honestly, I'd be more confident in Tom Heaton if he wasn't coming towards the end of his career and he wasn't injury prone for a player who barely plays. So yeah, I do think that there are still glaring issues in that team that need to be sorted. But I think the fact that we can field stronger teams in the FA Cup, the fact that, you know, we won it only 2 years ago and that was such a huge moment for the club. We know we are capable of it. There are a lot of players in this squad that were part of that FA Cup winning team in 2024, and there's been more quality added to that now. I don't think it's totally out of the realms of possibility for us to win it. As I say, maybe this is a bit more up my heart than it is my head, but I do look at that team and think they are capable of winning a domestic trophy. That could be the League Cup, this could work the other way around. United might win the League Cup and Tottenham might win the FA Cup, but I'm going to stick with United winning the FA Cup, purely because it is the bigger trophy. But as I said there, United need a strong season in the Premier League. And for me, as much as I hate to say this, a strong season for me would be finishing even 6th or 7th. And it's, again, not out of the realms of possibility that we could finish as low as 8th, 9th or even 10th. So I wouldn't want to have 2 seasons outside of Europe. I would definitely like to be back in some sort of European football for the 26-27 season. And I would much rather that be Europa League than Conference League. So for that reason as well, I'll go with the FA Cup. So hopefully it will happen. I'm really hoping if I get any prediction right out of these, it's this one. But we'll have to wait and see. As I say, United need to make a few more signings, I think, for me to be more confident in what we can do this season. But I definitely think a top 7 finish and winning the FA Cup, I think that's definitely achievable. But now we move on to the other European competitions. Of course, we already predicted the Champions League. Now it's time to predict the UEFA Conference League and the Europa League. I'm going to fly through these because they're fairly self-explanatory, but let's just get into them. The Conference League, I am going with Fiorentina, purely because David De Gea plays for them. No, to be fair, it's not just because of that, but that is the main reason. I would love to see David De Gea get his hands on that trophy. But when you look at Fiorentina, listen, they got to the semi-final last year where Betis knocked them out. They were losing finalists in 2024 and 2023, and here they are back in the Europa Conference League again, the UEFA Conference League again. I really think they'll be desperate to win it. Palace shouldn't even be in this competition, who will definitely be the favourites, I think, going into it, Crystal Palace. They should, of course, should be in the Europa League. I could make a whole separate video about what a disgrace it is that they're not in that tournament, but listen, you hear me get mad enough when I play career mode. You don't need to hear me get mad talking about a team I don't even support. But still, it was an absolute injustice. Probably should pay better attention to their emails, but still, I don't think that was enough to knock them out of a competition that they qualified for by winning a trophy. But anyways, whatever. But I look at Fiorentina, and I was very impressed with how they played at Old Trafford as well last week, and I definitely think they could have a good season both in Serie A, and I definitely think they'll be desperate to win this Conference League. I mean, I don't know how often other teams have been in the Europa Conference League, or excuse me, the UEFA Conference League. I keep calling it the Europa Conference League. They changed that a couple of years ago. But anyways, I don't know how many teams have been in it in consecutive years, but to have been in it now for a 4th year in a row, to have been in 2 finals, and to have lost the semi-final, I just feel like their time is coming to win this tournament, and hopefully it is this season. But of course, if they can't win it, then I hope Palace win it, simply because it would be justice for what happened to them in the Europa League. But speaking of the Europa League, again, I feel like this is basically everybody's prediction, so I'm not going to go on about this too much, but Aston Villa, I really can't see anybody winning it other than Aston Villa. But it's not just because, oh, they're the Premier League team in it, or one of the 2 Premier League teams in it, and it's just easier to predict that. I do think there is a lot of substance to Aston Villa winning the Europa League. I think the first one is, you look at the 2 teams in the Europa League final last year. 15th place Manchester United and 17th place Tottenham Hotspur. Villa are going to be nowhere near as bad as that this season. And of course, look at their manager, Unai Emery. How many times has he won this competition? Ironically, the one time he got to the final and lost was when he was managing an English team. Of course, that was with Arsenal. But I think this Villa team is better than what that Arsenal team was. And that Arsenal team, it didn't feel like an Emery team. This Villa team is almost an Emery, prototype team, really. It really is his team down to a T. And fair enough, they've been quite quiet in the transfer window, but I also look at the fact that they narrowly missed out on qualifying for the Champions League last season, and controversially as well with the goal they had allowed, or disallowed I should say, at Old Trafford. And I think the race for Champions League football, whether it's 4 teams or 5 teams to qualify this year via the Premier League, it's going to be extremely tight. So I do think Emery will be clever enough to look at that and think, you know what, maybe we're better off putting all our eggs in the Europa League basket, winning that tournament, ending Villa's 30-year trophy drought, because it will be 30 years in 2026 since they last won a trophy. So do something similar to Tottenham, where you end that trophy drought, win that European competition, and qualify for the Champions League. But as I said, I don't expect Aston Villa to finish anywhere near as low as United and Tottenham did last season. But now let's swing the attention back over to the Premier League and talk about who I think is going to qualify for Europe, and also who I think will get relegated. So let's focus on the relegation side of things first. I really don't want it to be 3 up, 3 down, but I do think it's probably the most difficult it's ever been for the newly promoted teams to stay up. I do think Sunderland have had a good summer, I really do. Leeds, I think, might hold their own. Burnley, with all due respect, they're the most 20th place team I've ever seen. And I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see all 3 of them stay up. I don't even like Leeds. I don't even particularly like Sunderland or Burnley. But it would be nice to see the 3 teams coming up stay up. But I know that's probably not going to happen. But I do think it is feasible for at least one of them to stay up. And I am only going to predict one team to stay up. That team is going to be Sunderland. I just feel like Sunderland have been out of the Premier League for so long. They've spent really well. I think they've probably been the most impressive team in terms of the transfer window they've had of the newly promoted teams. And I do think they will have enough to stay up this season. So I am going to predict Leeds and Burnley to go down. And the other team I'm going to predict to go down, to be honest with you, it's Wolves. I do think Cunha is a big loss for them. Wolves haven't looked right for a couple of years now, and I think losing their best player is going to have a massive effect on them. I still think that it's going to be incredibly tight between these teams. I don't think it's going to be as big a gap as it was last season between the 3 bottom teams and even 17th place. I think it'll definitely be a lot tighter this season. Brentford, I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to get on after losing Thomas Frank and Keith Andrews. I mean, all due respect to him, of course he's an Irishman, and I wish him well. Quaveen Kelleher has signed for them too. I just can't really work out how I think they're going to do this season. I don't think they'll do as bad that they'll end up getting relegated, but I can't see them finishing very high above the relegation zone as well at the same time. So that's my prediction for the relegated teams. I really hope at the very least it's not 3 up, 3 down, because that is just boring. But in terms of the teams who I think will qualify for Europe, so Liverpool, as I said, I think will win the league. I'm going to say right now that Arsenal will still finish second. And I think, yeah, the top four this season is going to be the same as the top four last season. Man City in third and Chelsea in fourth. I wouldn't fully sleep on Chelsea, though. I could see them finishing above Man City. I think if City were to have a little bit more of a transitional season than, they're hoping for, I wouldn't be overly shocked if Chelsea finished above them. But for right now, I am going to say that City finish above Chelsea. Fifth place, I'm going to go with my heart again. I'm going to say United. This is going to age so badly. Oh my god. As I said, we've made good signings. Mbumo, however you say his name, Cunha, Diego Leon. If we can get Baleba, it will make me a believer that we can finish fifth. I do think the fifth place English team will be in the Champions League again. I do think that English teams are going to do really well in Europe this season. I mean, I've literally predicted Liverpool to win it, Villa to win the Europa League, Palace, at the very least, I think we'll get to the Conference League final. I do think that England will get that fifth Champions League spot yet again. So that means we could have 6 teams in the Champions League for the second season running, which is absolutely crazy. Again, this prediction does really feel like I'm making it with my heart, but I have to believe. I have to believe that we can have a good season. And when I say a good season, I never thought I'd say this. Fifth for me would be an extraordinary season for Manchester United. So I will admit that this is me kind of being like, if I get this right, I'll obviously be happy because it's the team I support doing well. And really, so at the end of the season, I can look back and go, I told you so. I told you all that we would have a good season, we would finish in a Champions League slot, and you all doubted me and I was right. So I'm really hoping this ages well, but I'm not very confident about it. But listen, we will wait and see. 6th place, I will still go at Newcastle. I think that they'll finish just slightly below where they finished last season. They've obviously had a very disappointing transfer window. They missed out on Šeško. Isak, of course, looks like he's going to be leaving. They have brought in Anthony Elanga. I do think they will do enough to still fight for a Champions League place, but I think they'll probably just narrowly miss out. But listen, being in the Europa League for them, I still think would be a decent achievement, considering that would be 3 seasons out of 4 being in some sort of European competition. And in 7th place, I think I will go Villa. I think I'm going to predict Tottenham to finish 8th and Aston Villa to finish 7th. Again, Villa, I think will put a lot of their eggs into the Europa League basket, but I'm not expecting them to have anywhere near as bad a season as United and Tottenham did last year. And then in terms of the top scorer, I know a lot of people will say, surely if this guy is the top scorer, you think his team is going to win the league, but that's not always how it works out. Ask Harry Kane and Alan Shearer about that. I think Victor Gyökeres. I know a lot of people are saying that they think he's going to flop. Well, let me slightly rephrase that. Not that a lot of people are saying he's going to flop. I think people are suspecting whether he's going to be a flop or not. I think Victor Gyökeres is going to smash it in the Premier League. I really do. He was incredible for Sporting. Of course, he did previously play in England for Coventry, but of course, playing for Arsenal is going to be at a completely different level for him. But I think he's ready for it. I really do. I think that experience out in Portugal has prepared him for this. And as I say, I get my Premier League prediction wrong every season, so I'm hoping this is almost kind of my alternative way of saying that Arsenal win the Premier League instead of Liverpool. But yeah, I do think Victor Gyökeres will absolutely smash it in the Premier League. And there we have it, lads. That is all the season predictions done for 25-26. But I do have one more announcement that I would like to make. So I was going to do this last year, but I didn't feel like we had a big enough community to actually, I suppose, execute it. But I feel like now we've gained quite a few subscribers over the past 12 months, so I feel like now is as good a time as any to do this. I have created a fantasy football league. Yes, the FPL will be a part of the Straight Outta Cloyne universe, and I'm very, very excited for it. I have picked my team. I'm not entirely confident with it, but we'll see how it goes. But I will leave the link to join the Fantasy League in the description. I do think it could be a bit of fun. And here's what I'm going to say. The winner of the Fantasy League, as long as it's not me, which, let's be honest, it probably won't be, I will use you as a created player in my first FC27 career mode series. So if you watch this channel and you watch my career mode series, I always like to have an Easter egg created player in that career mode. That will be coming to FC26 as well. I'm not going to announce who those players are going to be until the series start, but they will still be there. But if you win the Fantasy League, the Straight Outta Cloyne Fantasy Premier League season, then you will be a created player in my first FC27 series. So it's all to play for, lads, and I'm very excited about it. But of course, please feel free to let me know in the comments below who you think is going to win each of those trophies. Who do you think is going to qualify for Europe? Who's going to be the top scorer? Who's getting relegated? I'd be very interested to know your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please do hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel as well. We are on the road to 700 subscribers, and I will talk to you all again very soon. Take care.